Did you know that 78% of Americans say that they live paycheck to paycheck? That is insane, okay? And I don't want you to be one of them. So in this video, we're gonna be taking a look at a recent survey of those saying that they live paycheck to paycheck, why they feel like they're living paycheck to paycheck. And at the end of the video, I'm gonna go through what my wife and I did to get out of our paycheck to paycheck cycle, which led us to paying off $43,000 worth of debt in just about a year. And now we have a $1 million net worth and counting. But we have to just dive right into the article here. And as you can see, I've highlighted this right away. 2023 survey conducted by payroll.org highlighted that 78% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. And this article by Forbes sort of synthesized all the data, put all the data together, and it was an easier way to consume it. So that's why I just kind of want to go through some of the talking points here. And this was a 6% increase of the previous year's survey. So it went up 6%, okay, which is just insane. And so just for some clarity here, this is how the article and the survey kind of defines what paycheck to paycheck is. So for the purpose of the survey, living paycheck to paycheck describes a financial scenario in which an individual or family's income barely covers essential living expenses like housing, utilities, groceries, and transportation. One missed paycheck would put someone living paycheck to paycheck in a difficult spot, right? Self-explanatory. Most people know what that is. I just like to define words to make sure that we're all talking about the same thing. This was an interesting question and kind of what they led off with, right? Which generation is most likely to live paycheck to paycheck? According to the survey, nearly half of baby boomers said that they live paycheck to paycheck. This part down here was very alarming in my opinion. So this is how much do Americans have saved? And as you can see here over in the savings column, we have $1 to 500, 500 to 1,000, right? And so on and so on. And basically $1 or probably $0 to $2,000 of the respondents who say that they're living paycheck to paycheck, only 15% of them said that they have over $2,000 saved. Okay, $2,000, only 15%. And what was also kind of surprising is respondents whose income exceeds standard expenses. So basically they're making more money than they're spending every month. Only 40% of those people have over $2,000 in savings. Like, what's going on here? This column just seems lazy, okay? This column, I totally understand. You're living paycheck to paycheck. It's hard to save money when you're paycheck to paycheck, right? But this column doesn't make any sense. They talked about families who live paycheck to paycheck. So in a lot of scenarios, and this is kind of surprising, but families with one child reported more paycheck to paycheck scenarios than other, right? So that's kind of interesting. I don't really have any talking points on that. It's interesting that it goes down from 52 to 31 when 1 to 2, right? Because I don't know. I guess it's about the same, right? I've got 2 kids. Are the expenses that much higher? Yes, they are. So that was interesting. And yeah, 5+ kids. Wow, good for you guys. That is insane. So now let's get to the meat and potatoes of this article and of this survey, right? What's causing Americans to live paycheck to paycheck? And they've got this awesome chart down here. And we're going to kind of dive through a few different talking points because they've broken it out by reason. Okay, so all over here, there's like 10 reasons, and by generation, right? So Gen Z, millennials, Gen X, baby boomers. So basically here, they asked the respondents to identify 3 key reasons, okay? So they had to each pick 3 reasons, and that's why the percentages won't match to 100%, okay? But the 3 overall issues that all the populations had: high monthly bills, lack of budgeting and financial planning, and low income, right? Those were the top 3 for all of them. Now, let's take a look at each of the generations, and we can kind of click here and it's going to categorize it for us. So for Gen Z, high monthly bills, low income, unexpected emergencies, okay? And surprisingly, Gen Z was the highest with unexpected emergencies. Now, I don't like to make assumptions here, but Gen Z, being a little younger, probably has less obligations than some of the other groups. So could this be a combination of unexpected emergencies and lack of budgeting and financial planning? Because that did come in 4th, right? So maybe there is some thing to that, right? Where maybe some of these are tied, like, okay, high monthly bills, but like, are we planning for it, right? Low income is low income. And I've said this on my channel many, many times, but don't feel like you're stuck with your low income. You could always make more money. People do it all the time, okay? You just got to want it. And even if it's not at your job, you got to look for another job or you got to do a side hustle. And kind of surprised down here with debt being only 4%. And I'm kind of overall very surprised that people only saying debt is 6% of the issue with living paycheck to paycheck. Now, we all know that debt is a huge crisis in America, the consumer debt, not even talking about what the government's doing, right? That's a whole other That's a whole other channel, right? But consumer debt, like personal debt, it's getting worse and worse and worse. And it doesn't make any sense that this is only 6%. So it's either people are lying or people feel like these other things are getting in the way of that. So for some extra context though, I've been an accountant for 10 years and I'm helping people with their personal finances. I talk to people every day and people call debt like a bill. So I don't know if maybe that was like a strange distinction where they saw the two options, but they just clicked on high monthly bills because they kind of grouped everything together. So that's certainly a possibility. Okay, so let's go to the millennials, right? Let's see what their challenges are. Lack of budgeting and financial planning, high monthly bills, and low income. Pretty much the same thing as Gen Z, except for I think they have lack of budgeting. Gen Z had unexpected emergencies, right? But that came in fourth for millennials. So it seems like it's a similar kind of structure with this. And again, very surprised. Millennials, 2.5%. Could have been lumped into monthly bills, but this debt thing doesn't make any sense to me at all, to be perfectly honest with you. And if this is true, then kudos to those people for not really having debt. And I realize that this is not the entire US population that they've surveyed, so it could be dependent on who they talk to, right? But it is very interesting. Okay, so let's go to the Gen X. And they had three that were basically tied for first, right? High monthly bills, low income, lack of budgeting, and financial planning. I'm seeing a theme here, right? People are blaming their high bills. People are blaming their low income. People are blaming their lack of budgeting and financial skills. Now, Gen X probably maybe a little more honest here with their debt, 10%. That's amazing. And as we're getting older here, like the medical expenses one is kind of going up and up and up. So that's going to change the percentages of some of the other ones, right? But kind of surprised to see Gen X social pressures being at 24%. I thought that would be like a Gen Z thing and a millennial thing, but it just shows that it's truly contagious, this social pressure, the social media, everyone's showing their infinity pools and their yachts, right? And everyone's just trying to feel like they're keeping up, but in the meantime, they're just buying things that they can't afford, okay? So last but not least, of course, the baby boomers. This one, they had an increase in the cost of living was by far the first. Almost 2/3 of baby boomers included this into their top three, right? So that's interesting. High monthly bills and low income. Now I'm going to sort this back to just the all real quick because let's take a look just at this list, right? High monthly bills, lack of budgeting, low income, unexpected emergencies, increased in cost of living, social pressures, medical expenses, financially supporting family members, and debt. So we just listed off 9 there, and I'm really only seeing 2 that are not really fixable in a way, right? So medical expenses and financially supporting family members, that one's kind of dicey. You could say no, it's tough. I don't really know what that means. Is it saying like you're helping your cousin? Is it you're helping your kids or your parents? But medical expenses, that's tough. You can't really do much about that. But the other 7, so let's call it 7 things that you could fix. They're actionable, right? High monthly bills. Is it because you're spending too much? Is it because of other factors, right? Lack of budgeting and financial planning. There's plenty of free information out in the World Wide Web, right? On YouTube, on other platforms, whatever. Low income. I mentioned this before. That is easily solvable. You can get a new job. You can try to make yourself more valuable at your current workplace, right? Unexpected emergencies. Okay, so I understand that if we scroll back up to the top here, I know that people are having, a hard time saving even just $2,000, but we got to start building up that emergency fund, right? And I don't want you to read the thing online that says 3 to 6 months worth of, monthly expenses should be in your emergency fund. Don't listen to that garbage. That's like outrageous because if you've never done this before, that could be $10,000 to $30,000, right? Like who has that kind of money? And just think about the stuff that comes up in your life that's unexpected and what dollar amount would cover most of those things, right? Is it $500, $2,000? They're your personal finances, so that number is kind of dependent on you, but that's what I would start with. That's what your goal should be. Increasing cost of living, that's tough, but like you could move. I mean, that's kind of tough though. It's a little harder. And I understand why baby boomers are saying that this is so much higher. They're probably used to 60 years ago when the cost of everything was not as expensive as it is now, right? Social pressures. This one's stupid. Like just stop caring what other people think. This one is probably the easiest one. You could turn it off in a day. You could just fix that in a day. Stop going on social media. Stop trying to, again, look at the yachts, look at the pools, look at the whatever. Medical expenses, family, yeah, we talked about those. And then debt. This is solvable as well. You create a plan. You put your debt in front of you. You take a look at it. You can put it in a debt payment calculator. I have one down in the description of this video, by the way. It's completely free to download. You put it in, you see how much interest you're paying throughout your loan, what your debt-free date is, and then you try to work out the fastest way to pay it down a little faster and adding a little extra money. Again, I know this is all about living paycheck to paycheck. You might not have extra dollars or whatever, but 7 of these are solvable. So that's great news for you. So down in the comments, which one of these is your biggest challenge? I'd love to hear from you guys because, again, they're all solvable. So once you look at it, you're like, yeah, low income's my problem. I would tell you, you could fix that, right? So let me know, and I'd love to sort of talk it through with you. I love hearing back, feedback from you guys. So that's great. All right, and I mentioned that I'm gonna go through what my wife and I did to get out of our paycheck to paycheck cycle. So I'm gonna go to my budget template. Now, when you go to download the debt payment calculator, this will also be included, right? There's 4 tracking files for you. So the debt payment calculator, the budget template, the emergency fund calculator, and the net worth tracker, right? All for free, down in the description, check them out. But this is the process that my wife and I did, and I hope it helps you. I'm gonna give you the quick sort of tutorial of this file. When you download this, there's gonna be a link with a video on it on my YouTube channel, and that's a more detailed tutorial. But for the purposes of this, I just kind of wanted to walk through the process. Now, this is not the budget template. This is, and we're gonna get to this in a moment, but this is the 3-month look back, okay? So quickly, what we're gonna wanna do is go back the last 3 months, look at all of your variable kind of expenses. So think groceries, gas, utilities, things that you pay every single month, but that fluctuate every single month, right? We need to kind of iron in how much we're spending on those months. So we write out all the categories here, and these are just some examples that I have, right? And then you go the last 3 months, you enter the actual data, the actual spend that you did, okay? And obviously, like, you want to be actual with these. I just put random numbers in here, but if you don't have pennies in there, like, you're not doing it right. And I'm not trying to be like completely anal about this, but you got to be as accurate as possible, because for this to work, you have to put in as much information and have it be as factually correct as possible. So if you put in $500 for groceries, I know you're probably not doing it correctly, because there's no way you exactly hit $500, right? Just as an example. So we go through yada, 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 enter all this stuff in here. Okay, great. And it's going to give us our average actual over the last 3 months. Now, the beauty to this file, and really to the budget template, is instead of thinking of budgeting as being this awful thing, and I can see your eyes rolling right now, like, oh God, he's talking about budgeting, here we go. I think that's a normal reaction for people, and I don't think budget should be seen as restrictive though, because it's not. I think people hear the word budget and they're like, oh my God, I gotta cut all this stuff, I gotta blah, blah, blah. But I want you to think about budgeting as being more intentional with your finances, okay? Intentional with where your money's going. A quick exercise, right? I want you to write down 1, 2, 3 things in your life that are super important. It could be a financial goal, it could be a life goal, right? And then after we do this exercise, kind of map out and see, is my money going to the things that I said was most important to me? And a lot of times people will find, no, that is not the case. And that's why we do this. We want to see not only where we're spending our money, but how much, okay? And then how much of the pie of the income that we're bringing in goes to this thing, right? Because obviously things like your utilities, you're not gonna be able to save that much money doing that way. Like, the utilities are the utilities. You kind of need to pay for those. But something like dining out, it's like, okay, is me going out once a week and spending $75 every single week, is that a priority? Is that lining with, one of my top 3 to 5 goals in my life, financial or life? Probably not, right? Unless you're, trying to buy a restaurant or something, you're trying to check everything out, but probably not, right? And that's why we do this. After we have the actual, now we need to create our new budget amount based on, now that we have all this information, we want to say, okay, is this helping me reach a financial goal faster, okay? So what you do is you enter a new budget amount. So by the power of technology, we're gonna add these in here, and I did this before the video, so I didn't wanna waste you guys' time. And how it works is you take the average and you're like, you know what? Either it seems about correct, you put in the average, or you're like, you know what, I could spend less in this category, I could spend more in this category. Okay, so let's go through 2 examples. Groceries, right? If your average grocery spend was $550 and you're like, you know what, I've been going to that really expensive grocery store, and I think reasonably to start out, I could probably just save $50 if I went down like a tier or 2, right? In terms of grocery stores, still go to the nice ones for those, couple things that I really enjoy, but for the most part, I'm going to do the majority of my shopping down a tier, or, you know, down a dollar sign, right? So I think that could save me $50 a month reasonably, right? That's great. Now, the action step that we need to take behind this is also just as important, because anyone can just say, yeah, I'm going to save $50 a month with groceries. You could just say that, but why, right? So what action? And that's what this column's for. What action will you take to make this happen? So we said cheaper store. So that's great. And that's, you can make this a little more detailed if you want. I'm just trying to buzz through this for you. And then, like I mentioned, budgeting is not just being restrictive, like cut. So you'll see that the monthly savings, the green means that we've saved money from our average. The red means that we're increasing our spend than we have been, right? So the example that I like to give is health and fitness, right? You look at this and you're like, you know what? $30 a month, that's not a lot at all. Like, my health and fitness is a huge priority for me. So I actually need to be taking more classes, doing more supplement things, whatever, right? So I think I'm going to double this to $60, and I'll just figure out the difference later. I'll cut some stuff out later on. That's not a big deal, but this is so important to me that I need to spend more money. And then what action are you going to take to make that happen? You're like, yeah, I'm going to do more classes. Now, after you're done with all of those, and I understand that this process is a heavy lift, right? There's a lot going on. It's going to take you some time, but it's a really good exercise, because you can't get the outcome in a personal finances without doing the foundational work. You can't build a house. You can't build the third floor of a house without the foundation of the house, right? So I understand it's a lot of work, but it's a one-time effort, and it's just going to give you more openness to what you're seeing with your personal finances. So after you've gotten your monthly savings here, this column, it's really cool. It totals up the monthly savings. And now, by just looking at your finances and aligning them with goals that you have, you've saved $131 a month on average, okay? And you didn't even have to get a second job. You didn't do a tag sale to get this. You just looked at your finances. That's it. And this annualized savings here, I added this down here so you could see the impact that it's having, the larger impact, right? So could you do a lot of things with $1,600? Could you put that towards a pretty cool financial goal, like paying down debt or building your emergency fund, right? Putting it into savings, unlike all these people that we saw in the survey, right? I think you could. That sounds great. So now let's go to our budget tab, okay? And all of this is going to flow over. I'll show you in 1 second. So we're going to click on that. Here's the budget, okay? And I've entered in just some stuff here. I just like to play around with this stuff. I'm kind of a nerd like that. I'll show you quickly how it works. I'll go through all the sections and kind of just walk you through it. So this section up here, let's talk about this. So total budget. This is going to be basically our income, okay? The money that's coming in. So as you can see, I already have paycheck 1, paycheck 2. So let's just say you're one person and you get 2 paychecks a month. And each paycheck is $2,200. So this is just taking your total expected income, and that's going to be your budget, right? Because it makes sense. You can't spend more than you're making every month, right? So that's why this is your budget. And this budget template uses the zero-based budgeting strategy, which basically means if $4,400 come in, that means $4,400 exactly has to go out. And if that makes it sound like you're going to have no dollars at the end of the month, technically it's true, but there's a point behind it, so we're going to kind of go through all of it. Now this remaining to budget, okay, let's say that I've removed some of these stuff that I've added in here, okay? So what this is doing, remaining to budget, it's taking all of our budgeted expense totals. So you can see here we have fixed expense, variable expense. This is what carried over from our 3-month look back, okay? Financial goals, we want to budget for those, and debt if we're paying off that. So all of those columns get subtracted from the total budget amount, which is $4,400. So right now, we just have $1,000 here. So $4,400 minus the budgeted amount that we have so far is $1,000. This cell, this cell, this cell, we'll get to the other two in a second. The green means good, and that you don't need to take any more action with it. The red means that you have something to kind of correct, right? So the remaining to budget, we have $3,400 left to budget. So we're going to go through that in a second as we kind of keep going through this. Leftover money. This is our total budget minus the actual amount of money that we've spent in each of these categories. So as you can see, there's nothing in any of these yet, and we're going to change that in a second. But each category has a budget section and an actual section. So this is looking at the actual section. And the goal here is to have $0 left over at the end of the month. Now, this actual spend is sort of tied to the leftover money. It's just showing us how much money we've spent, okay? It's just an easier way to look at it. Total financial goal, it's gonna total up the actual amount that we've paid towards a financial goal, and total paid to debt, the actual amount that we've paid towards our debt, okay? Pretty self-explanatory, those last two. So we have 3 cells that we need to sort of correct here. So remaining to budget, $3,400. I'm gonna undo a couple of those things that I removed really quickly. Right, so now we've budgeted. I'm actually gonna take off this debt here. So we've added our fixed expenses, okay? We have our variable expenses, and let's just say, for example, that this is all of our living expenses. This is our need items, our want items, whatever. And we have $730 left, okay? This is where it comes in handy to put that towards a financial goal, right? So put it towards your emergency fund, put it towards some sort of short-term savings goal that you have, put it towards paying down your debt, okay? So let's say, because we were talking about emergency funds earlier and savings, let's put $500. We're gonna budget that for our emergency fund. And then let's say our credit card, we wanna pay that off. Now we've budgeted exactly $4,400, okay? And that's why this is 0. If we were to add something else on here, it would go into red and it was saying, oh, we've actually budgeted more than our income allows us to, okay? So that's the power of these simple colors, right? It just shows you, yes, we're good. Okay, perfect. Now, leftover money, okay, so we need to spend $4,400. So I'm just gonna go through these. Okay, so leftover money now is 0, which is great. That's exactly what we wanted. The actual spend is $4,400, and this stays green as long as we don't spend more than our budget, okay? So if we were to spend less than that, it would stay green, just as an FYI, but then the check would be this leftover money, right? So we still want to spend exactly $4,400 so that all 3 of these are red, but I just wanted to show you that this will be green until your income amount, right? So if we do 501, now we've gone over $1 and now our actual spend is over, right? So that's why it's just a good check and balance up here that we have. So yeah, that's how we do it. And if you get to this point where you enter all your fixed expenses and your variable expenses and you're like, ooh boy, I literally still have $0. The thing that you can do is you gotta just keep cutting, like especially if you don't have any money going towards financial goals, like if your debt is stagnant and you have no savings, got to cut for probably a few months or something just to have something, even if it's you live a little below your means for a few months, okay? It's some short-term pain, but long-term gain. Like if you had a $500 emergency fund, like that would probably help you a ton, okay? And then you just have this safety net sitting over here. It's $500, it's not a lot of money, but like that would cover a lot of things probably that came up. And then over time, maybe your goal is to get that to $1,000. That would feel even more comfy, right? And then $2,000, okay? And you just kind of keep slowly building it up. And then, say you get this to $2,000 and then you have a $700 expense that comes out of nowhere. You're like, okay, I used to panic about stuff like this, but now I can just pull it from my emergency fund, pay it off, and I can keep going towards a financial goal, and this $700 expense doesn't derail me completely, right? I see it too often where a multiple $100 expense just like completely cripples a household for like a month or two because it brings them back, and then they have to like catch up to where they were, and then they keep going, and sometimes that could take multiple months for, again, just like a few $100s, okay? So I don't want that to be you. Just a reminder to download the personal finance level up kit. So it has this, the debt payment calculator, emergency fund calculator, the net worth tracker. I'm uploading daily videos. Let me know if this helped you down in the comments. I will see you in the next one.